I'm Tony.
And I'm John.
And this is Asterikast. Welcome to episode 2 of Asterikast. To quick little recap of last episode, if you haven't seen it, we covered installing Asterisk on a Slackware box. We covered what packages you needed to download in order to properly install Asterisk, what order to do them in, a few of the extensions, how to set those up, adding one phone. We did echo test, and we talked about how we were going to be setting up some voicemail. So today what we're going to cover is going through some of your extensions, such as some of your configuration files, such as extensions.conf, voicemail.conf, and meetme.conf, which is for setting up conference bridges. So we're going to go ahead and get started with this now. We're going to shoot on over to our on-screen, and John's going to take it from here. But first we're going to go ahead and explain a little bit about macros and how to use them with your extensions, or with your configuration files, to save you time in the long run.
Alright, so so basically what we have now is a normal extensions.conf with a handwritten extension. And basically our handwritten extensions works good for a few phones. But, you know, if I had a widespread deployment, 100 phones or something like that, I would not want to write all of my extensions by hand. So right here I've got my SIP context with my where my extensions say 100, and my first one calls my phone, and the second one hangs up after 20 seconds. Okay, so we'd like to automate this process so we can add as many phones as we wanted to, and maybe not have to add them all by hand. So what we do is we create what's called a macro. A macro is a simple way of just recreating a process over and over and over again. It's similar in Microsoft Excel, or you can do macros in C. You can do macros in about any decent programming language. You can do macros in.
And for you audio video tech heads, you understand what macros are from audio video. An example in that fact would be you turn on your receiver, in turn your receiver turns on your TV, which then turns on your DVD player, which then turns on 5.1 surround, or you can set it up for video game consoles, VCR. Sure. Macros are widely used in tons of things.
Sure.
They just make your life a lot easier.
Sure. So basically what we do is every macro context has to start with the word macro and have a dash. After the dash is exactly what the macro is called. So, for example, our macro is going to be called dial me. Alright. Underneath dial me, we need to make our same extend rules. But the difference is we don't put a extension number, we just put S here, and we put our priority, and then we put what we want to do, dial, SIP / we say parentheses, $, capital ARG 1. And what this will do is allow us to pass a variable up to the macro. If you compare this to our other SIP context, you'll realize what we're kind of doing here. So basically we have the exact same thing, except we have an S context and 100 and 100 down here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to just space this down. We're going to eventually delete that, but we're going to make it extend 100, comma 1, comma dial. No, I'm sorry, macro, and then the macro name. So the macro name is dial me, comma the variable we want to pass. What this will do for us is when extension number 100 gets called, it's going to actually pass it into the macro rather than actually running it in the SIP context. Now, obviously this doesn't look very useful right now because we have a 2-line context and we have to write 1 line in order to get to it, so we have to actually write 1 extra line in order to get there. But if we had voicemail in here, or we had call forwarding and all the other stuff written into here, it would actually make the process a lot simpler.
And we're not exactly sure what our viewing audience is like, but anyone that's using this in industry or in a business situation, setting up 50 or 60 extensions, you're definitely saving yourself time by doing macros.
Right, and I'd also like to make one correction, one mistype. The $sign actually goes outside of the brackets, and I knew that before I typed, but I made the mistake. So, all right. Anyway, so we reload Asterisk, and with all luck, I should be able to dial 100. So it passed it into it went ahead and passed it into our macro, and you can see that here where it says executing macro dial me 100. Then you'll see dial OSP SIP/100. So basically, it did exactly what we wanted it to do. So adding another extension in the extensions comp is as simple as saying extend 101, comma 1, comma macro dial me 101. And that will, as long as we have a 101 in our SIP comp or our IX comp or whatever, and we'll go ahead and add a 101 if it's not already added in here. Okay, we'll go ahead and add an extension 101. Our type is a friend, because we're going to add another phone eventually. Our username will just be 101. Our secret will be phone. We'll disallow all protocols that were specified before and allow ULAW, because we're on our local network and we're not too concerned about bandwidth. Our host could be anything. And our context is default. And we'll go over later on how you can set up permissions with your contexts. So if you wanted a person to only be able to dial internal extensions, or you wanted a person only to be able to dial 1-800 numbers, we can actually show you how to do that. Context is actually a really good way to make permissions for certain things. Alright, so basically if we went at reload, we could, right here is where our second phone, if authenticated, all we would have to do is dial 101. But of course it's going to hang up on us because there is no 101. Okay, so that basically explains what a macro is. But let's say we wanted to throw voicemail into the mix. Let's get a little crazy here.
Yeah.
Getting dangerous. Alright, so all the voicemail is located in etc.asteriskvoicemail.com. So we'll go ahead and go in there. And basically there's a few settings you can set in here. Basically I normally leave everything default. So, except for the format. Normally the format comes WAV, maybe G729 if you have the license, and GSM. If you're not worried about making a web page to download your voicemail or things like that, just leave it at GSM. There's a reason for it to record 3 streams at a time.
I just want to interject here. We do have voicemail set up as well as a conference bridge. Right now our voicemail number is 712-432-8005. You can leave us some voicemails there if you have any questions, and if you do, we can either reply to you if you leave us an email address, or we can try to answer the questions on show. Coming up pretty soon, we'll be using our conference bridge to take live calls. and I think we'll start scheduling some conferences that we'll just have either before or after we're done recording, something to that effect, and we'll put that on the front page and in the forums. Second of all, we do have the forums up now, so if you'd like to sign up, ask some questions, you can post in there. And we've added a new section, downloads, to our site. There we'll be putting any scripts that we write, any how-tos, and as well as we're going to put some software in there. Right now we have some soft phones for people that don't have to buy them. You don't have to look for them. You can just go to asterikast.com, click on the downloads link, and go to soft phones.
Right. Well, I also wrote a script, which I'll be showing you later, to manage conferences, to be able to keep people out of your conference. Okay. So we're still in our voicemail.conf, and basically what we're going to look at here is we have a server email, which I normally leave as asterisk. You can change it to like do not reply or something if you want to. If you're going to do that, I would recommend sending your server email to like do not reply at yourdomain.com, but we're not going to worry about that because this is our simple in-home setup. Okay, the other important one would be the attach equals yes. What this does is not only sends you an email when you have a new voicemail, it actually attaches the WAV file of that voicemail to your message. Okay. And other than that,
now if you're using a limited inbox, then you're not going to want to do that.
Yeah, I would turn that off.
But if you're like using Gmail, you're probably not going to have a problem.
You're not going to have a problem. All right. So basically, that's pretty much the important things inside the voicemail conf. There's a lot of stuff you can do in here, and this file has been very, very, very well documented above the command that you can normally do. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and go to the bottom here and add our voicemail in.
I highly suggest that you guys take the time to sit down and read through the config files. They're really easy to understand after you look at it a couple times. We will get more depth in the future into the voicemail, some of the top, more advanced features you can do with them. But it's nothing you guys can't figure out yourself if you open it up and just read.
Right.
It's really not that hard to understand what they're trying to tell you. They tell you what it does, they show you an example of how to set it up, and then you can just add your own down below.
Right. Okay, so notice that we're in the other context down here. So that's important for the rest of this, for when we actually go and set it up. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up voicemail for extension 100. And what this first option is the voicemail password. When I set up voicemail, I don't always set it up with the same password as the username, because you can change that later. The next one is the user that's associated with this account, and that would be me. And lastly is the email to send it to. Okay, so there, we've set up our voicemail conf, but we haven't associated it with us yet. So, and we don't have even a way to dial into our voicemail yet. So I'm going to go ahead and reload Asterisk. But then I'm going to also go into my extensions.conf. I'm going to go all the way down to my SIP context at the way bottom. And I'm going to add a new extension, extension 500. I normally make my voicemail extensions somewhere higher than my normal extensions, so it's out of the way and it's not like in the middle of dialing or something. So like if you've got extension 100 is me, extension 101 is voicemail, extension 102 is Tony, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I normally make my voicemail up really high. So I say voicemail main, and then I also, so I have an automatic login, I use the caller ID num variable. Remember, we're at other inside of our voicemail conf, so we put at other.
If it doesn't work, it's probably because you forgot the at whatever you have.
Right, if it doesn't try to automatically log in, you probably just forgot the at other. So, if Tony went and dialed 500 as long as I typed everything right, need to double check one more time. Voicemail main, extension. Okay, Tony should be able to go and dial extension 500. I see where I made my mistake, so let's go back in one more time. It's very important that when you write these variables out, you get you don't put the wrong kind of brackets at the end of your statement. Go ahead, Tony.
Password.
So now it just asked us for our password and nothing else.
Okay.
So we made our password 100, so Tony can go ahead and type 100.
You have no messages.
New voicemail? No messages. Alright.
So if you're setting this up in a larger area where let's say you want to be able to check your voicemail from any phone, any situation, you wouldn't do it this way. You'd want to pick up the phone, enter your mailbox number, enter your password. But when most people are just going to be checking their voicemails at their own local phones, then you just go ahead and sign it.
Right. And there is, I don't remember the exact command, Tony uses voicemail more than I do. There is a way to get around to other voicemails while you're inside your voicemail box, and I don't remember what it is off the top of my head.
I think it involves pound.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Or
sure it
star.
involves pound or the asterisk on the
Yes.
phone. So, okay, so we've set up our voicemail, but we have no way to leave our user a voicemail. So let's go ahead and edit our extensions.com and our newly created macro. So what I do is I'm going to add a new priority, and what's kind of important to remember here is that if a time limit's been reached for, in our example, 20 seconds, or 20 seconds worth of rings,
It's not 20 rings, yeah.
it's 20 seconds worth of rings.
Which is usually about 3, maybe 4.
Yeah, maybe 4 rings you'll get out of that. It actually goes 1 plus 101, which is kind of confusing for your priority. So basically after 20 rings, it's going to skip to priority 102. That's kind of confusing, but after you've done it a few times, you just accept it and move on. So then you say voicemail, and then I normally do unavailable 200, or I also do B200, busy 200. So if somebody's on the phone, instead of saying that the user is unavailable, it's going to say that they're busy. Okay, and then we also make our hang up variable go to 104. Okay, but, so we've got one phone here. We're not going to get too far by just calling ourselves 100 times.
Exactly.
So let's make a quick transfer to voicemail extension. So if our normal extension is 100, let's make a new extension called 8100.
Now where this is going to be useful is, specifically when we're in a business situation, let's say you can tell someone's on the phone, or they just don't want to take a call right now. You can just pick up, dial 8100 and transfer them to the current voicemail.
And I made a mistake here too. It should have been U100 and B100 because the 100 after the U is the extension. So just keep that in mind that it's U for unavailable plus the extension. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and give them the busy message rather than the unavailable message. So that way if somebody calls in, they know that we're on the phone. So we can tell our secretary, hey, we're on the phone. Tell them we're on the phone and they can transfer us directly to voicemail. Now with all luck, this will work. Tony?
I'm totally on the phone right now, but if you can leave me a message, as soon as I get off, I will give you a call right back. Thank you.
Please leave your message after the
Okay,
tone.
so what actually happened there is we had a voicemail box set up, but so Tony already had his message recorded. So just ignore that. By default, you'll get, Allison saying the person at extension 100 is busy. Please leave your name after the tone. We already went in and configured our mailbox.
So what I want to do is we'll call back into our mailbox just as though we were calling it, and I'll show you some of the setup features.
Let me show you one more thing about voicemail that may or may not be interesting to you. Okay, so since Tony's going to dial 500, and we know what his caller ID number is, if we add the letter S in front of the caller ID num, it's actually going to automatically log in. It will not ask him for a password. So let's go ahead and have him go ahead and dial in.
You have no messages.
Put me right in.
Press 2 to change folder. Press 3 for advanced options. Press 0 for mailbox options. Press 1 to record your unavailable.
Okay, so we'll record my unavailable message.
After the tone, say your unavailable message and then press the pound key.
Hi, this is Tony. I'm not available right now. Leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Press 1 to accept this recording. Press 2 to listen to it.
So we're going to press 1 to accept
Message has
it.
been saved. Press 1 to record your unavailable message. Press 2 to record your busy message.
So now we had an unavailable and a busy. We'll do a busy message.
After the tone, say your busy message and then press the pound key.
Hi, this is Tony. I'm on the other line right now, but if you leave a message, I'll call you back as soon as I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you. Press 1 to accept
Okay, now we can go on. I can record just my name. There's a lot more things you can do in this mailbox. Those are just some of the basic setup features to get you going.
So that'll get you set up and going here. All right. So we've done voicemail. We know how we do voicemail. The only other thing that I'm gonna tell you about voicemail is in the voicemail conf. Since we chose our format as only GSM, that's not going to do us too good when it emails it to us.
Yes.
So if you want to have it email it to you, we need to add the wave option as well. And what that does is it records a GSM stream, which is good. GSM is cool, as the people from Digium would say. And wave is just the uncompressed version of the message.
Now the reason wave is good is because you can listen to it in a Mac, you can listen to it on a Linux box or a Windows box.
Right. So I mean, just keep that in mind.
Or a GNU operating system.
Or the GNU operating system, whatever. Anyway, so basically that leaves us with how to do conferencing. Now, conferencing can either be easy or it can be hard. It depends on your options. We're going to make an easy conference.
Yes.
Okay. If you want music on hold and things like that, then you're probably going to be above the level of that we're going to go here. We have set those kind of conferences up before.
And we might get to that later on, but right now, our goal in the first few episodes here is to get you up and running with all the features that are easily available and accessible in Asterisk.
Right.
And then from that point, we can take you in further, delve deeper into the available options and that.
Yep.
And we want to actually get into some hardware here coming up. Later on in the show, we're going to show you how to set up a TDM 400p card from Digium,
Right.
which will have FXS and FXO chips on board, so that's exactly what we want to do.
Right.
But we'll get done with the conference calls and we'll go to that.
Okay, so with the meet, okay, what constitutes a conference? Last time we talked about that in order to set up a conference, you need the ZT dummy driver in order to make it function correctly. Well, there's a problem with that. My sweet machine I've got sitting under this desk here has a problem with the USB controller. So since the last episode, we've upgraded to kernel 2.6.15, I believe. Yes, 2.6.15. All we had to do was copy the default Slackware 2.4.26, I think comes with 10.2, and copied it into the new directory. We did a make, and then basically copied the BZ image and did a make modules and make modules underscore install, and rebooted the box, or added to liloconf, ran lilo, rebooted the box, and we were good.
And as long as your USB controller is not having any problems,
Yeah,
you shouldn't have any problems.
You'll be fine then, as long as your USB stuff's getting loaded right. Alright, so basically the meat and potatoes of MeetMe is, or the conferencing is the meetme.conf. Okay, the meetme.conf has a couple of options, especially new to 1.2. Basically the audio buffer, which I don't normally mess with, and I don't really actually know what it does since it's so new. I don't really ever mess with it, so don't mess with it unless you know what you're doing. So basically, we're going to add a simple conference, and we're going to have our conference be conference number 1000. Alright, so we've got a conference, and the interesting thing about meetme.conf is every other conf file pretty much you have to type reload after you're done. The meetme.conf you do not have to type reload, it gets dynamically reloaded.
Yep. So
that's sort of important to our whole deal here. So now we need a way to get into our conference. So far we have none. But we can easily add another extension.
now you're kind of seeing where the macros come in handy.
Yeah. Well, we're going to add an extension, let's see, 200 for our MeetMe conference. That's it. Now when I reload, when you add it to the extension, when you add the way to get to the MeetMe.conf in the extensions.conf, you have to reload when you add the conference. So if I added any more conferences after this, and I still wanted them to be on number 500, I don't have to do anything. So.
Okay, so now we're going to download our conference, but before we can do that, we have to load the ZT dummy driver.
Since we didn't have an actual Asterisk card to do the timing, we had to still choose our ZT dummy driver. In order to do that, we mod probe ZT dummy. Okay, so that should have loaded it into our LS mod, and we noticed that it did. It loaded the Zaptel driver and it loaded ZT dummy. But that's kind of a pain to have to load that every time. So what we're going to do is we're going to edit our rc.local script, and we've already written where it's going to start Asterisk in safe mode. We're also, before we actually do that, we're going to mod probe And I know what some of you hardcore Linux guys are out there saying, why didn't he add that to the modules.conf? Well, for the simple reason that if I remove Asterisk or something like that, I don't want to try to mod probe a module that's not there. I know it doesn't make much of a difference, but to me it makes it cleaner. So you guys can do it however you want. I'm gonna do it this way. So Tony should be able to. Let me get into Asterisk here so they can see the conference go.
Okay.
You should be able to call in.
Please enter your conference number followed by the pound key.
Which is 1,000.
You are currently the only person in this conference.
Okay, so we're in the conference right now. We could have other people call into the conference. One cool thing you can do with this that we're not going to show you today, but we'll show you later is, let's say I'm the only person in the conference and I'm really bored. You put music on for the first person that sits there, and as soon as the new person comes in, it'll drop the music and wait for the second person to come in.
So maybe now what we could go through is a little bit about what the manager.conf is and how that can pertain to your conference based on the software that I just created, the Asterisk Conference Manager built with Ajax.
Okay.
First off, that might be kind of important
To explain what Ajax is.
to explain what Ajax is. Ajax is not a new, it's not like a brand new idea, or it is a new idea, but it's not a new programming language. Basically, what Ajax is, depending on who you talk to, Ajax is sort of a JavaScript language that downloads web pages in real time. So, I mean, you know, Ajax doesn't have a home, it doesn't really have an RFC, it's just a programming language, or a programming concept based originally in JavaScript. So what I created was a simple way to manage a conference using Ajax. So your page, basically the fundamental problem with every conference manager out there, and mine is not advanced at all, I'll tell you that, but the fundamental problem is you have to have a 5-second reload in every page, and the page has to refresh. So if you've got 100 people in your conference, you have to scroll, and you want to kick the last person in your conference out, you have to scroll all the way down and click that person before your 5 seconds is up. My idea is that's probably not the best way to handle things, especially with technology being the way it is. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Asterikast.com.
Went to the forums.
I went to the forums, but
Which is asterikast.com/forums.
yeah. I'm going to click on downloads. This is a new section we just added, so if you haven't seen it yet,
It's because we've got that.
that's because it just added. I go to scripts, Asterisk Conference Manager, version 0.1. It's a tar BZ2 file. I'm going to go ahead and save it to disk. And since I'm logged in as root, put it there. Alright, so now we go tar minus JXVF asterisk underscore conference manager. Alright, so here's all the stuff you need for Asterisk Conference Manager. There's a simple how to install, already written. The license, it's licensed under GPL, so if you load this file up, you'll see that it's just a copy of the GPL version 2. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is go to my Asterisk stuff directory. The Asterisk stuff contains an example of how to do the manager conf, how to do the meet me conf, which is exactly the way we did it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and copy the manager conf that come with this, and your mileage may vary. If you've made changes to your manager conf, do not copy this file. But we haven't made changes to our manager conf. Alright, so there's that. Now I'm going to go into my pages, and I'm going to go ahead and copy all of these files, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy it to the root of my HTTP server. Okay? I'm also going to need to enable PHP, so don't let me forget.
Yeah.
Alright, so I'm going to go into my Asterisk directory first, and I'm going to show you what the manager conf is and what it does. Alright, so the manager conf basically allows you to connect in using a sort of a telnet interface to control Asterisk. So you can list all your users, you can basically manage Asterisk through a telnet interface. It allows people to write scripts to control Asterisk, or web pages, or whatever. So the first thing you do is you have to enable it. It's by default no. I use the default port and I bind it to the 127 address. It is not safe to bind Asterisk or bind the manager to anything else but 127. If you do it, it's at your own risk.
risk, whatever.
Risk.
Just don't do it. Let's put it that way.
Just don't do it. Okay. And the basic one we're using for this whole connection is we're using our username context and with the password of password. I don't recommend this. I would recommend changing it.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, we're denying everyone, and in this permit overrides deny. So you can deny everyone and then allow a block of IPs. What we're doing here is we're only allowing 127.0.0.1, only that address to connect in, with the right privileges of system, call, log, verbose, command, agent, user, and all. If you don't know what those are, look them up. I'm not going to explain them all. All right. So we have to reload Asterisk. Okay, so our new manager settings have taken effect. Trust me. You can look by seeing netstat minus TNA. There is a 5038 bound to 127.0.0.1. That's safe. Alright, so now I'm going to make sure my PHP is enabled. And if you installed Slackware, you can actually go into htdoc, etc., Apache, and then it's httpd.com. And then I usually just search for PHP, and it wasn't loaded. So we're going to go ahead and unhash it. And we're going to make sure that it starts every time we start the box. So what we do is we make the HTTPD script executable, and we go ahead and we start HTTPD. And I forgot to write the word start. Alright, so this is loaded. So now if I was to open up a web browser, which is already open, and go to 127, find my numlocks on, 127.0.0.1. So as it works, so we did something right. But we still haven't configured our MIPI manager yet. So we're going to go into var www htdocs where we had copied our MIPI manager before. We're going to edit, as per the install file, the output file. And it just so happens that everything but our conference number is correct. So we've got username, password, our manager server, which is the local host, and our conference number. So if you would change the username context, you would change this box right here. If you would change the password, you would change this box. And if you would change the server, you would change this box. And
Don't change the server.
Yeah, I would not recommend changing the server. You can do it. You can run this remotely. Not recommended, but you can. And then basically the conference number goes here. So, with all luck, I should be able to load up index.php and see that I'm managing conference 1000. Now, I haven't tried this over IP yet, so this will be interesting if it actually works. So go ahead and dial in, Tony. Oh, nope.
Yeah, that was my fault.
Please enter your conference number followed by the pound key. You are currently the only person.
All right,
Here we are.
So we're there, but since it's an IP to IP call, this won't actually work correctly. It does work through TDM, and I'm working on making it work over IP. But the way we can temporarily make it work is by going through an option that we weren't going to go through tonight, but that's okay. We go into extensions conf, and before we dial, for example, we'll go extend 100, comma 1, comma, set caller ID to 555 555 5555.
So what we're doing here is, if you ever want to be able to spoof your caller ID, there you go.
That does not set the ANI, so
No.
all of you guys, you can set the ANI, but we're not going to go into that right now.
Yeah.
So now this should make it work. With all luck. Did I close the web browser? Most of
I
it.
believe you did.
So we'll go ahead and reopen it here. All right, let's okay, go ahead.
Please enter your conference number followed by the pound key.
It didn't set our caller ID.
Yeah.
So, I mean, basically, the only other way to do this is like a huge hack, and this will definitely not work. I mean, it'll work, but it's retarded. So, but I'll do it anyway, just to show you how this works. Extend 200, Count one, count one, set, caller ID 555, 555, 5555. Alright, now Tony will dial it. Alright, Tony, go ahead and dial in.
Please enter your conference.
Alright, so you see it set our caller ID here to 555, 555, 555.
Okay, so I'm gonna log into 1000 now.
You are currently the only person.
And with any luck, it says 555, 555, 555.
Here's the cool part. I'm currently in the conference bridge. He clicks my number.
This probably won't actually disconnect him because it's only set up for a Zaptel channel, but we'll find out here. You see, it didn't kick him because it was only set up for a Zaptel channel. It's not set up for SIP. And that's a planned feature of the next version. But this is kind of to get you the idea of what it's like. So if you have to manage dial-in conferences, this is the way to go. Or if you need an example about how to use Ajax with Mimi or Ajax with anything, the Asterisk Conference Manager is something you probably should look into.
And Ajax is amazing. Just
Ajax is rocking.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing PHP for 5 years, and I was excited when I saw PHP the first time, and I actually wrote my first PHP script, and when I saw Ajax, I'm like, I have to learn how to do that. And I was talking to another web programmer, and he said, Ajax is pretty hard, but NFL.com uses it. I said, really? So I never actually went to NFL.com, but I understood the concept that basically the XML HTTP requester has to stay open. It actually keeps opening a connection back to the web server and keeps reloading that page over and over and over again. It's a neat concept.
And you might want to explain though the problems you're going to incur if you're trying to view it with Internet Explorer.
I have it fixed now, but Internet Explorer 6, supposedly version 7 will have this fixed. I'm not a Microsoft guy, so I don't know much about any of this, and I know from experience that Microsoft will say something one week and the next week it'll go away. I don't know if this is still the case, but basically, in order to make XML HTTP requests work in Internet Explorer, you have to do it's an ActiveX control. So it's painful to make. You got to make a normal XML HTTP request for any other browser but Internet Explorer, and then if that doesn't work, then you open up the ActiveX control from Microsoft. So it should work on your computer. If it doesn't, let me know, and I can work on fixing it. I just started the script and I wrote it in a couple hours. So if there's something wrong with it, I apologize.
Post it in the forum.
Post it in the forum. Go to the forum, post it. I'll try to get it corrected. This is only version 0.1. It was a proof of concept to see that if I could actually do Ajax. This is my first Ajax program.
Yeah.
All right. So what's next?
I think what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and explain to you a little bit about the TDM 400p card. We'll give you the idea of what it is here, and then we'll also explain what exactly its purpose is, and we're going to show you a configuration file and how to configure it. And then we're actually going to go install it in one of John's boxes and show you what piece of crap we have in there currently. Just like the one I installed in my box at home.
The wild card.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it worked good for a while.
Yeah.
All right.
Big boys play with big toys.
Big boys play with big toys, and if you're gonna do something, put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Actually,
Actually, I found these cards pretty cheap. The cards aren't so expensive. The cards are about $50, but the actual FXS and FXO chips are looking about $69 to $70 a pop.
right.
So,
And I put 4 on mine. I have 1 FXO and 3 FXSs, which we'll show you in a second. But basically, what I'll show you first, or maybe Tony will cut this and it'll be afterwards. I don't know. But here's how I configured mine in my house. So, since I have 3 FXS ports, I have the ability to have 3 normal phones in my house be on totally different lines from each other. So what I've done is, in my Asterisk install, first thing to look at would be the Zaptel conf. And basically, what you do is, and it's kind of confusing because even though they're FXS ports, they have to be configured like FXO ports. It is completely backwards from anything I've seen, but anyway, 1 through 3 on my card are FXS ports, but they have to be configured as FXO. So here's my 3 FXO ports, and my 1 FXS, which is actually my FXO. FXO will connect me to Quest, and it expects dial tone from Quest. FXS puts out dial tone. So FXS ports need to be configured like FXO. Don't forget that. And since I'm from the US, I need to load zone US, and my default zone would be the US.
Are you confused yet?
How are you confused? Alright, so after I've done my Zapto comp, I run my ZTCFG minus, I usually add a couple of E's afterwards, and I go ahead and select the enter key, and it tells me that all of my channels on my card are configured. Alright, so there's the first step. Now I go into my Asterisk directory, and I edit my Zapata.conf. Zapata, if you've read any history, is the guy that first thought that you could make cheap cards to put into computers to make them PSTN compatible. So, Mr. Zapata, we thank you. All right. So, there's basically one context inside the Zapata.conf, and that's the channels context. The channels context basically sets a couple of options for our machine. Basically what I've set up here is that I want echo cancel. I want echo cancel when I'm talking to somebody. I want caller ID to be passed, and I don't want to hide it. And if music on hold actually worked, this would play music. My signaling for my 1 through 3 cards is FXO. Once again, backwards. These are actually FXS ports that are reconfigured as FXO ports. That is way confusing, and I know that, and I apologize, but it's
not our fault.
It's not our fault. All right. The context that I want to pass these calls to are the local context inside my extensions.conf. So anytime that I pick up the phone and dial a number, I want it to pass to my local and go follow that dial plan. All right. So my FXO port, which is configured as an FXS port, I want to send, when somebody calls that or when that thing gets a ring, I want to pass it to my local incoming so I can ring the phones in my house. And that would be on channel 4. That's number 4 on the card. Okay, so I'm going to go a little bit into my extensions.conf. I'm not going to get too advanced into my extensions.conf because I don't really need to confuse people right now. But I'm going to show you my local incoming. Alright, basically my local incoming, I got to cut that out. My local incoming, what I do is I have what's called Zapateller. It's another application from Digium that basically if somebody calls my house with no caller ID, it answers it and it passes the 3 numbers not in service tones. So number you've reached not in service, but without the number you've reached is not in service. What this does is when a telemarketer calls you, it actually goes and says, you know, this number is not in service to them, and they take it off the list.
Let's do a quick thing here with my cell phone. I'll just *67 myself and give you a call so you can hear this.
And while Tony's doing that, the other part of the Zapateller, after that is my privacy manager. What happens there is it says no caller ID was detected, and we're going to, and it makes you dial in your 10-digit number in order to ring my house.
Okay, so we'll put this on loudspeaker so we get here. I don't know how clear it's going to be on my cell phone.
Okay, so basically what that did was, since Tony dialed to my house with no caller ID, it said, hey, I don't know who you are, but you can't be calling here without a caller ID. I've already gotten complaints, but that's good.
That's the point of it.
That's the point. Lastly, after they pass the privacy manager rule, it calls my phones in my house, which I have 3 phones that are on each of those 3 cards. And it calls those for 60 seconds. After that, it hangs them up. So, in a nutshell, that's my extensions.conf when somebody calls my house.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to get up and move on out of this room here that we lock ourselves in.
The dungeon.
And we're going to go ahead and take the old wild card out of his box and put the new TDM 400P card in there. Show you the install of that. And let's go do that now.
Alright.
Okay, so now we're going to show you how to install a TDM 400P card into your Asterisk box to allow incoming and outgoing calls without the use of GrandStream or a grand stream phone.
No voice over IP involved.
That's correct.
Alright, so right here I have a TDM 400p, which I just ordered thanks to my wife letting me. What it's got on it is, maybe we want to zoom in on this?
Yeah, we can do that.
Alright, so what we've got here is we've got 2 reds and 2 greens. What the reds are is FXO ports. An FXO port is a foreign exchange office port. Basically what an FXO does is accept dial tone. So, for example, the new SBC, that's how you'd receive your dial tone. The green cards are FXS ports, which are station ports. Station ports allow you to connect normal analog phones to the card, basically. So, what we can actually do with this is, I actually only have 1 phone line in my house, and I will be replacing one of these red ones with the green one. But I'll be able to have 3 analog phones plugged into my card, and be able to dial 1 line out to the PSTN, and the rest of my will go voice over IP to wherever I want. So my wife can be on the phone, I can be on the phone, and a friend of ours can be on the phone. All separate phone calls, normal analog phones, and not IP. So what Tony's going to do here is install this and take out my old card that I had in here before. And
So now what we're taking out is an X100P by Intel. It's a clone of the Digium wildcard modem, and replacing it with a much, much better piece of equipment. This is the old modem by Intel. As you see, it has 1 line in, 1 line out, but this is just an FXO only. Now, you might want to wear a static wristband with this.
But Tony's touching the case, so it's
That's
probably
right.
okay.
I'm grounded. Just ask my wife. Okay, now I don't know if we showed you this or not, but this card actually requires its own power. So luckily we have some extra power from a standard power supply. We're going to plug into this. Okay, that's it. Card's installed. So as you notice, we're just running this on a simple Pentium board, but how much memory do we have in here?
It's got 512 of memory, and it's got a 500 megahertz Celeron.
Exactly. So this isn't anything fancy. It's a perfectly good box for a perfectly not so good rack.
And another thing I forgot to mention before was that these cards, on the back of the card, they're numbered 1 through 4, and it starts from the left-hand side, red, red, green, green. So the number of the outside of the back of the card corresponds with the first card on the left-hand side, like this red card right here.
Corresponds to the first port.
First port, yep. And it works backwards. So in a minute here, we're going to go and explain TDM. Okay, ladies and gents, we're going to teach you what TDM means. TDM, or time duplex multiplication, abbreviated as TDM. TDM is old school. Time duplex multiplication. What does that mean to you? Alright, so in the old days we had the party lines, where you called up one phone number and it rang your neighbor's phone, your phone, everybody else's phone. They could listen on your conversations and you had nothing to do about it. Well, the phone guys got smart, amazingly, and created this thing called time duplex multiplication, so everyone on your neighborhood could be on the same phone line. A little bit how it works. If you picture a motor, and then you picture lots of little electrodes coming off of that motor, and a little thingy in the middle that spins and hits all of these electrodes as it goes around. That's the way time duplex multiplication works. It shares a single line with everybody. That thing spins so fast you don't even know it spins. I mean, that in a nutshell is time duplex multiplication. So the card we installed today, the TDM card, basically is electronically able to share the phone line with everything else. But the PSTN, it understands time duplex multiplication. If you plug something in that, like a digital port into the telephone system, it ain't going to work because it doesn't understand TDM.
So that's going to do it for the second episode of Asterikast. We've covered a lot today, so sit down, watch us a couple times, try to figure it out. If you have any questions, you can email me at tony@asterikast.com or john@asterikast.com.
Tell your friends.
Yeah, tell your friends. We had a lot of viewers on the first show. We were actually surprised. We're hoping to get some more this time. Don't completely whore us out, but if you wouldn't mind posting in a couple places, get us up so people know about it. We are relatively new, hence we're not quite out there all the way. What I do want to remind you of is we do have voicemail. Once again, it's 712-432-8005. You can leave a message for us there. We have added a section to our downloads on asterikast.com on the download links under scripts called Viewer Submitted Scripts. If you guys have any Asterikast or Asterisk scripts that you think would be cool or you want to put out there, email them to me, either me or John. Again, that's Tony@Asterikast or John@Asterikast.com. And we'll submit them up there, put your name on it, credit given where credit due.
Yep.
So once again, that's going to do it
Your
for
script, hold on. If the scripts need to be GPL'd, if they're not GPL'd, we won't put them up there.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to get a big licensing issue saying someone stole our script. So,
Yep.
yeah, if it's not open source and you don't want people editing and messing with your stuff, don't submit it.
Right.
You good?
I think that's it.
Okay, so that's going to do it for episode 2. Once again, my name is Tony.
And I'm John, and thanks for watching the #1 video cast for Asterisk out there.
Asterikast.
Asterisk.